Rocco is really complimentary of JD's poise. Kind of, how have you seen that kind of consistently through his 3 years, and maybe in what ways have you seen that possibly grow more?
Yeah, I think that's one of the big reasons why he got on the floor as a freshman. I think he didn't get attached emotionally to the wrong things. Defensively, as I mentioned before, defensively and just how hard he played, taking care of the ball, those things helped impact winning. And I think I have always seen him just be very level-headed, never too high or never too low, one way or the other. And I think what's grown is just his confidence in who he is. And obviously, physically he's changed. He's added components to his game, but that mindset and that composure have always been there. It's just probably more on display now because he's more center stage than he was 2 years ago as a freshman. So that served him well. I mean, it served him really well as a freshman, and obviously it continues to be one of his strengths now.
I think you talked about it in the past with John, but when you were recruiting him, there were obviously AAU games where you'd go to and you'd almost never even look to shoot. That was never a big part of his game. I'm just curious, has there been a player you coached that maybe just surprised you in that way and maybe reinvented himself completely different once he got to college? And
Yeah, I don't know if I would say he reinvented himself. I would say he has been able to obviously improve but blossom, and really where I got a true glimpse of how impactful I thought he could be early was actually with his high school team at the Michigan high school coaches event that they had at that time. That's where I really got a sense of just his awareness, specifically defensively. I was able to sit up in I don't know where they had it at, one of the D2 schools, Grand Valley State maybe, and I was able to sit above and just watch his positioning and his awareness of things. He was always in the right position, and he was talking, and that's the benefit of being able to evaluate not only with their AAU teams but with their high school teams, because the roles are different at times. So for him, and he also played with 2 other Division I players on his high school team. So I just thought his awareness and his intellect would really help him early as a freshman. And then obviously he's been able to expand his game and really show what he can do. Maybe he didn't, it wasn't as much in the forefront with his high school team as what he is now. But it was just the awareness that we've talked about, the basketball IQ, the understanding of the game and how to impact winning. That was pretty evident. There's more evident with his high school team than even with his AAU team, just because of the structure of it and obviously what his high school team was trying to accomplish. And that was literally in the summer too. So I thought then that the mindset was in the right place and he understood the game, and then it's a matter of him continuing to grow in his in his game. And he's been part of the transformation too, as we've switched how we've kind of played. We had him coming off back screens and stuff as a freshman at times, and doing different things, and he's been able to he's grown that part of his game. He's pretty good on the block, and then obviously his ball handling and shooting have gotten exceptionally better as he's been here.
Greg, what do you remember about Andrew as a high school player, and what are the steps you felt like he took in going from a place like St. Thomas to Virginia to where
he came through, during, I think as he was getting to the tail end of his high school career, we were coming out of COVID, so the evaluation was spotty. I mean, just events, and we were trying to get our arms around it. Quite frankly, he wasn't good enough to play at this level, and I think that was witnessed by where he, not that St. Thomas is not a bad place. I mean, Coach Tower's done a great job there, but he went to the right place given where he was at that point in time. But that's a huge credit to Andrew of how he's developed, and he had a really good freshman year there. Obviously put up a lot of numbers. And then I think the transfer to Virginia not only helped him from obviously playing at a higher level, and obviously what it did for him defensively too. I think it also was a little humbling for him. I don't think he came in with the splash maybe at Virginia that maybe he thought he was going to have, and and learned how to impact the game, as you hear me say a lot, in other ways. And now he's, his best attribute, he was always a really good passer in high school and good with the ball in his hands, those things, but the other aspects of the game that he's added to his toolbox, specifically in the defensive end, that's where I've been most impressed, just because obviously you don't study him when he's at another school real hard. You don't see him day to day. But I know he wasn't the defender that he is now when he was back in Brookfield. So that's a credit to him that he's added things to his game that he had to in order to play and have success at this level.
Yeah, Greg, with the start Nebraska's had, obviously having a healthy rink mass has been huge. Just with his ability to step out and hit the three as well as score inside, what maybe difficulties does that bring and what has stood out through this game so far?
Well, he's about 28 years old or whatever he is. It seems like he's been there forever, and he was at Bradley before that. You have somebody like that back that's old and experienced and now healthy, and how they've centered kind of what they do offensively around him with spreading the floor, and they have good players around him that understand their role and read cuts off of him. He presents a lot of problems just because of his ability to pass. They wrap off him. He hits guys cutting to the rim. He hits guys going back door. Obviously, his ability to shoot the ball from three. And then he will straight line drive you, and they'll work him in the post a little bit too. And he's just he's a consummate worker. He's reminds me a little bit of Nick Martinelli, but bigger. But just physical, old school, gristled vet. And he's going to be. It's fun to watch him play as you're watching Nebraska's offense kind of come together and how all the pieces fit together. But it's not real fun having to game plan against him or play against him. But I think that's just another, it's a testament to him that he stuck with it when he got hurt and stayed, and really worked to improve his game, because he's gotten better every year. I remember him at Bradley when we played them. I thought he was a good player, and he's grown leaps and bounds since then.
Obviously, had the neutral-ish game at BYU, but first true road game. Kind of, what are the things that you're maybe especially looking for from this group, and kind of what do you say to some of those freshmen who haven't been in an environment like this?
Yeah, I think you stay true to who you are. And make sure everything that impacts the game happens between the lines. So we've thrown in crowd noise and super loud music the last couple of days just to try to shake it up a little bit. But you mentioned the BYU game was basically a road game, and you just got to go play. And I think you understand, you block that out. You don't let that seep in. That's hey, everybody dressed in red is cheering for Wisconsin. Maybe.
Coach, Nick had mentioned punching first against Marquette and Northwestern. How important is sort of landing that first strike, especially on the road against as balanced of a team as Nebraska is?
Well, you want to get off to a good start no matter who you're playing or where you're playing, right? Those first 10 possessions are important in order to get your footing, establish what you want to establish. And there's some feeling out a little bit. There's a little sparring going on, just trying to figure out how teams are going to play different parts of the floor. Nebraska comes with a little unique defensive concept, and how they really flood from under the rim and trap the post and try to push you baseline. So, there'll be some of that, just feeling that out. We've tried to simulate that well in practice as well as we could in 2 days. But I think no matter where you're playing and who you're playing, you want to play all possessions well. But that first 10 of the first half and that first 10 of the second half they set the tone. And hopefully you can, get some solid footing underneath you and continue to stack good possessions on top of each other.
Coach, when you shoot 46% from three as a true freshman like John did, there's going to be some obviously natural regression, when you move from the middle of the scouting report to the top. But this season where he doesn't necessarily have to handle the true point guard duties for you as much, how much, has that maybe impacted his three-point shooting consistency, do you think, as well as, the guys you put around him that are playmakers, Andrew and Nick, too?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of all those things. It's a combination of him not having to constantly initiate the offense like he did a year ago, even though he was pretty good at it. I think it's a combination of the guys around him too, and it's not just, it's also Rapp and Winter and other guys that are Belauskas that are three-point threats that just spreads the floor a little bit more. And I think the third component, or the next component, is just how he's improved. I mean, he's gotten better. He's tightened his shot up. He's gotten more consistent with his rotation with it and his release. And he's been, for the most part, he's been pretty judicial in terms of the shots that you take. And and I always tell them, if you want to shoot a higher percentage, take better shots. And he still takes some mid range. We're trying to minimize that a little bit more, just because the numbers and the analytics behind it tell you to not take very many of them, or if any of them, and that, I think that's helped his percentages go up too, even though I don't know what he is after the last game, but the numbers you would think would be really in his favor in the mid-range game, but you actually, when you pull them out and look at your synergy shot charts, it's still, even as good as he is in their mid-range, it's not as good as layups, dunks, and threes. So not as efficient for your offense. So I think it's a combination of all those things, Evan, and probably more than anything is he's improved. He's worked at it.
JB's always kind of had the ability to draw a lot of contact, but to be averaging 7.5 fouls drawn per 40 minutes, kind of, what do you think's been the key for him to kind of take that next step there?
I think strength and conditioning. I think he's in better shape. I think his body is, from a lean muscle mass, is better, and that always takes time for somebody to understand how to develop that, how to adjust your lifestyle. In the off season, he changed some of his diets. He really worked hard with Coach Schneider on what to eat, what not to eat, and workout regimen, those things, sleep patterns, hydration, all that is really, there's no single silver bullet, but if you stack all those together and do that consistently, you can make some pretty incremental or sometimes incredible changes. And I think that's been a part of it. He's stronger, but also I think he's more athletic, he's leaner, he's maybe a half step quicker, and the experience that comes with playing for 2 years. Now he's putting all those experiences and those possessions to good use.
Coach, consistency is a word that we keep hearing. What's been your message to them to help them maintain that level of consistency?
Yeah, I think you always want to just play the game the right way, practice the game the right way, not get consumed in results if you're doing things the right way. I know it's a little coach cliche with the process and all the jargon that goes around that, but it's really true. You just focus on the day at hand that you have, and if you're consistent in an hour and a half, we went an hour yesterday and we went an hour 15, hour 20 today. If you're consistent in that, and then that starts building, much like the dietary adjustments and habits that JB did personally, if you can develop those good habits as a team of being consistent, and when things do get a little off track, they quickly self-adjust. But if you won't play consistently if you don't practice consistently well. It doesn't have to be long, it doesn't have to be outside the box, but you have to have consistently good habits in order to be a consistent team.